On today's episode of How Do I Make This About Sonic, we're going to be talking about annoying things in video games and alternate playstyles. This topic came up when I was playing the Sonic Unleashed momentum-based physics mod. I did that a couple days ago. You can check the card somewhere there. I'll put a link to it. I do recommend playing the mod. I think John Luca did a really good job with the physics part. However, I would say that there are a lot of not so very fun things when you play the game in its entirety outside of the main day stages, and I think that if he were to revisit it, it definitely needs some more testing and adding some of the scripting back because it can be pretty annoying. But anyway, this isn't a critique on that. You can check it out if you want to. As some of you may know, last year I became completely obsessed with Resident Evil 4 and its remake, and because of that, I've been getting a lot of questions about what I think about Resident Evil 9, so I went ahead and watched the extended gameplay trailer for Resident Evil 9, showcasing the Grace gameplay and the Leon gameplay, and this is sort of where it all began, so let's jump into it. Out of curiosity, because most people were talking about it, I did take a look at the extended gameplay for Resident Evil 9, and it looks like the same problem that I have with Unleashed. Is that half of the game will be game that I want to play and the other half will not be. So I found that was kind of funny. I know, making it about Sonic, but that it literally gave me the exact same vibes. Though granted, Grace and Leon seem to play way more similarly than Werehog and Hedgehog do. So kind of unfortunate, especially because it seems that Grace's and Leon's campaign are one linear adventure, not like two different scenarios. So like if you really enjoyed the Leon stuff, you have to play through the Grace stuff. I would say a little bit less like that because I think it's nice to have a little bit of time away. Like, that's why mini games and alternate gameplay styles like exist in games, I feel, is for the sake of that variety. But with something like the Werehog or just alternate gameplay styles that, you know, went from Sonic Adventure until Unleashed, it's too much. In Spider-Man, like, I definitely think some of the MJ and the Miles sections go on for a little too long, but in comparison to the playtime you're playing as Spider-Man versus playing as them, I don't really think it's that bad. And, like, it makes me, you know, excited to play as Spider-Man again. It's like getting excited to play the game again without actually having to put the game down, if that makes sense. Not necessarily, because even if I like the alternate play styles, like, I like Tails and Knuckles in Sonic Adventure, but I would rather there be more Sonic levels. So it's not just necessarily a case of, like, personal preference on, oh, if you like the styles or not, you know? It's more of a case of, I would have rather they spent dev time making more of the thing that is pretty vastly superior, because as I've talked about before, I find it very difficult to find folks who like the alternate play styles of the adventure games, but also don't like playing as Sonic. It's like, okay, you know, why didn't we spend our time working a much more interesting play style for what these games are, instead doing shit that's not really aligned with that? Yeah, I guess that's more of a, like, super yes statement that if you like the thing in the game, it's not a problem for you in the game, I suppose. The problem is just introducing extra stuff that doesn't need to be there when you have a much stronger core foundation. Something being a problem or not being a problem is a subjective viewpoint, because problem is a bad thing, bad, good or bad, whatever, you know, big brain, internet, psychology guy who plays Sonic games says something. So because problem is subjective, if what I think is a problem is something that you don't think is a problem, well, where do you go from there? So before we unpack the main topics, I want to talk about the last thing I said there on problem being subjective. One of the main examples that I love to give is that in the all gold medals run that Focus Sight did, who's a speedrunner for Sonic 06, and all gold medals essentially being the 100% category for Sonic 06. If you don't know, the gold medals are the precursor to the red rings you see in current games now. And I think he did it for a charity event. I can't quite remember, but I always put links in the description to things I reference in these videos, so you can check it out there if you'd like. But during that run, someone in the stream chat talked about how awful 06's loading screens are, which I'd say is a pretty general consensus, but what I found more interesting was Focus Sight's response to that, in saying that he actually kind of likes the loading screens in Sonic 06 because when you're speedrunning the game, they serve as a nice break between all of the insane tech. And let me tell you, Sonic 06 has some pretty insane tech. I haven't released the silver part of it yet, but if you want to check out on the main channel, I have 2 videos covering Sonic's and Shadow's P06 versus 06 speedrun, so I recommend giving those a watch just to see how insane 06 is. And that's something that I already knew, of course, that at the end of the day, art is subjective, and what may be fundamentally considered a good thing to do in a video game, somebody may be out there that actually already likes the way it is. So that was sort of the catalyst for that thought, and kind of changed the way that I viewed critiquing video games on what necessarily are problems with the game and what aren't. All right, getting into the real meat that I wanted to talk about is first annoying things in video games, which in the age of ROM hacks and just in general gaming, it's just so stuffed with quality of life features that sort of remove the friction of the video game for players is, one, really nice because I would say in this day and age, humans are busier than ever, so we can't spend a lot of time grinding Route 1 level 3 Pidgeys in order to level up our Pokemon to level 100, unless you're a YouTuber and you have time for that. But what I more mean is that I've actually come around to like the small annoying things that are in video games, because as I kind of just said, and giving Pokemon again as an example, in Black and White 2, shaking grass, kind of annoying. Love that Autono's there and that you can defeat it and get a bunch of experience and basically grind super quickly throughout the whole game. But it is annoying having to run back and forth, back and forth, back and forth on a route to get the shaking grass to even appear. And then on certain routes, it's not 100% chance to find an Autono in the shaking grass. And it makes finding the Autono way more rewarding, knowing that I had to go through a little bit of annoyance in order to get to it. Another example, like we talked about in the video, is Spider-Man PS4. Like the first one's the only one I have experience with, is the MJ and Miles sections are short enough in comparison to the playtime you play as Spider-Man that I find them a bit of a reprieve from the Spider-Man gameplay, but also annoying because I'm not playing as Spider-Man. But even with that, I'm still making progress in the game, and it kind of gives you a second to get grounded once again, even though playing as Spider-Man is way more fun than just walking through third-person story game simulator. Especially with the brevity of those sections, generally, I really enjoy them, and again, it provides some more of that friction because I feel that video games are sort of a microcosm of life in that they give you small challenges to overcome, and what makes video games so fun is that you can overcome those small challenges within the game, overcome that friction that the game gives you, in order to progress and achieve whatever goal you're trying to achieve, which in life, instead of taking, I don't know, 15 minutes, could probably take 5 or 6 or 7 years. You know, one of those. Now, this extends into the alternate play styles that our good friend Sonic the Hedgehog has found himself in many of the nostalgia-fueled adventure-era games that the internet is currently in the cycle of right now. I'm telling you, we're getting Forces as a misunderstood masterpiece in like 7 years. Just wait for it. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that unlike the MJ and Miles sections in Spider-Man, or unlike the Shaking Grass in Pokemon Black and White and Black and White 2, the adventure-era alternate play styles tend to be pretty drastically different than the Sonic gameplay that you're playing. Because mainly what happens is the way that you navigate through the level is completely different compared to Sonic, or the goal you are trying to achieve in that level is very different compared to Sonic. And while there is a subset of people who play these games that do like the alternate gameplay styles, I find it really hard to find folks who are disappointed when they have to play as Sonic the Hedgehog in the Sonic game, if you catch my drift. So because of that, I find it a really odd decision that it's not a small annoying thing to give you brevity like those MJ and Miles sections. It's these full, essentially other games within the Sonic game. And based on my own experience on grinding the Chow Garden in Sonic Adventure 2, there's a reason that when I was getting animals and chaos drives, I would always go back to playing the speed stages rather than playing the treasure hunting or the mech shooting stages, except for Pumpkin Hill, because it has really good spawns for skeleton dogs. But I'm getting off track here. Also, who are some of the most popular Sonic characters? Tails and Knuckles, who, at least in their inception, played like Sonic. Shadow, who in his introductory game was literally just Sonic, except a little bit worse because he didn't get some of the upgrades that Sonic did. Blaze plays just like Sonic. You seeing the pattern here? What I really hope is that when Sonic Team reintroduces the alternate playstyles, they're not necessarily alternate playstyles, but they're more alternate characters, where I think the difference is that instead of playing somewhat of a different game, you are playing the same game, but with somewhat different stats, at a different ability or two, those kinds of things. And as much as I don't like Frontiers, I do think that Final Horizon is a step in the right direction in terms of alternate characters, because Amy, Knuckles, and Tails, despite the skill tree being a little silly, do play like Sonic does. And I look forward to, hopefully, the next game where we get alternate play styles that it will follow that same format. If I wanted to go a step further, I would want them, obviously, like the classic games, where the alternate characters offer a different experience, but they're also optional. You know, like the main criticism of Sonic Heroes is that you have to play all 4 teams in order to get to the last story, and I would say, for me, that criticism also extends a little bit to Sonic Adventure 2, though not as drastic, because it's only 2 different stories with the same 3 gameplay styles. And then, of course, Sonic Adventure, where if you want to play the Super Sonic, you have to do the unrelated big fishing stuff. And I know that, like, it's part of the story, and, like, you don't get the full story, and the games, I think, would need reworks in order to make their story work while having the different side content be optional. But it does make me think that, you know, when I'm doing big fishing, I'm like, what does this have to do with collecting the Chaos Emeralds and stopping Eggman and Chaos, you know? And it makes me wish that that was more of an optional mode to get more out of the story. Like, big story could have been something that you go through, but completely unrelated to the other stories and stuff like that. So anyway, I think I'm happy where I sit there with that conversation. I know that this is kind of a hot topic within the Sonic community, so I'll try to respond to the comments when I can. I do read a lot of your guys' comments, and I gotta say that I am incredibly thankful and humbled by the most recent comments, and I can't deny that I feel a little bit that some of the nice comments might be AI bots just trying to make me feel good or something like that. I really hope it's not, but especially a comment on the last rant video about how you guys really like these webcam segments where there's no game and stuff. It's something that means a lot to me and something I really appreciate, because I do go through multiple takes trying to do this, but it's all unscripted and off the noggin. So I'm really glad that this is a format that has been something you guys have been able to enjoy as we wait for the last release for PO6. But yeah, I just really like talking about this stuff and, you know, getting more training, talking directly to the webcam, looking at the webcam, because really I'm talking to you guys, and I'm interested to see what you have to say of what I said, and interested in what you have to say about the topic of the video in general. So today's actually my 5-year anniversary since I hit go live on OBS for the first time. So if you're watching this in about 4-ish hours since the video release, I'll be live playing through Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and as a bonus, Sonic Mania, because when I first started streaming, I played through Sonic 1, Sonic 2, and Sonic 3 over and over again just to kind of get used to things, and they were games that, well, I knew pretty well. But until next time, I'll see you in the next one. That was kind of redundant, but whatever, you get the point. See ya!